So, over the past month, you guys have seen a lot of footage and, different videos of mine with me and a bolt action rifle. And that's kind of odd because you know how I feel about bolt action rifles. And specifically, what we talk about on this channel is warfare in the guerrilla sense of you're a civilian and your country is being invaded by a conventional force. How will you defend yourself and fight back? How will you join the cause and stuff like that? So, given that context, a semi-auto platform is better than a full auto platform. A burst is the second best option, and a bolt action is like bottom tier, third row. Semi-auto allows you to provide suppressive fire, which is essential if you get in a firefight. Anything within 300 meters indefinitely. It allows you to clear buildings. It allows you to keep heads down, so to speak. And with modern machining and manufacturing, you can buy a PSA AR full build for like $600, and out of the box it'll shoot 1.5 to 2 MOA. It might be better, it might be worse, but I've seen mine shoot about 1 to 2 MOA, which is pretty dang good considering the U.S. Army standard for M4A1 carbine is 4 MOA, and then after that they replace the barrels. So another little tidbit on that myth is, and that FUD lore, is that semi-automatics are just not as accurate. And while that may be true out to about 1,000 yards, modern semi-automatics, like I just said, out of the box are like 1 to 2 MOA, which will get you on target on a two-legged deer-sized target at 600 meters, roughly. If you have good magnification and you take all the human air out of it, you should still be able to smack some two-legged deer at 600 meters. And given the terrain of most places in the world, not just the U.S., you're not going to be making 1,000-yard shots. Now, yes, it's possible way up in the mountains. We're talking like straight mountains with not a lot of dense forest. Yes, it's possible in the deserts of, like, say, Arizona. It's possible in Kansas, in Oklahoma, where it's flat for miles. And that is definitely a viable option for a bolt action. But we're going to kind of get into the tactics. Now, keep in mind, I'm in the Appalachian region. It's nothing but hills, couple mountains, and dense forests. Lots of cliffs, lots of rock faces and caves. But it's more akin to a Vietnam jungle out here than it is anywhere else, or akin to the desert. There is no long-range shots. The farthest that I've ever possibly seen is 600 meters straight out in this region. That's what I could get on my rangefinder, and then even then it was kind of shaky and there was trees in the way. But that is a very uncommon occurrence, and take everything I say with a grain of salt. I've been purposely using a bolt action this last month and a half out on my training missions, going out about 2 times a week average, but actually sitting out here and doing LPOPs with it and reconnaissance and different kinds of things. And yes, I mean, it's all LARP, but if you know me, you know I train hard. And this is just kind of a discussion about it, what I found and what I think that the use case would be if, let's say, you lived in Canada or Finland or something like that, and you had to use a bolt action to defend yourself. So kind of my theory is, and kind of the way that I see them, a rifle is a rifle, so they're not exactly useless. But if you had to use one, you want to keep as much distance between you and your opposition as possible. I'm talking at least 500 meters, but you probably want to stay at 600 meters on the upper end of the semi-auto capability. Now, yes, a good shooter can smack steel out to 1,000 with a semi-auto. I don't know about 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, but I'd say the average dude could probably hit they could hit 300 meters all day. You get a decent shooter, he could probably hit 500 meters. But like I said, 600 meters is probably where the cutoff is for most people, at least in rapid succession, especially with a faster heart rate and or, you're getting a two-way range scenario when bullets have the potential to come back at you. So essentially, the best training that I see for running a bolt action would be like precision rifle shooting, which I know it's in the U.S. I'm not sure about all the other countries out there. But essentially, you have a minute and a half, and you got different stages of fire with a bolt action all the way out to, I think, 1,200 yards. And you get like you're kneeling, and then you're getting, standing and sitting, and you're moving. You're getting your heart rate up and stuff. But you're still having to calm down and make those shots. Now, way back in the hizzy, I used to run a biathlon with precision rifle. And we would like run and carry sandbags and ammo cans and stuff like that. And then we would get down, and then we would do like prone and I think kneeling. I don't think we did standing. That was the other event. But we would do prone and kneeling, and we would shoot that way at a very small target. And we get scores on that. And you already know my team won first place. I mean, come on now. Now, I wasn't the best shooter on the team. I was about the third best shooter, but that's how it be. I'm bragging a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Proud of my glory days. But the circumstances were a little bit different. We weren't at super long ranges. So, anyways, bolt actions have an advantage only if you give them an advantage. The advantage is distance. You want a ton of magnification. On mine, I run a 6 to 18 power Bushnell. Now, yes, that's a budget tier optic, but I do not have a lot of money. However, I've made hits on that thing out to the upper end ranges of where I live, and it is fairly consistent. And I honestly wouldn't change it. The only thing I would add is a BDC or a mil-dot reticle. It has a basic standard V-Plex reticle, and I kind of don't like that. I like having the BDC adjustments, but also keep in mind my bolt action is in 243. I would prefer 308 100%. I always say you need a NATO caliber to be running. It only makes sense. I mean, really, especially if you're at war, you're not going to be able to go to your sportsman warehouse or academy and pick up some oddball ammunition like 243. I mean, those places are probably going to be raided and or closed down. So 308 is probably your go-to. That's probably going to be your best bet for a bolt action for wartime, at least in the United States and Canada area. Now, like I said, distance. So every meter of distance that you gain from the opposition, it is a plus to you, but it's also a negative. It's a negative in the sense that you're really going to have to work on your long distance shooting skills, and you're really going to have to know where to hold. And I see this a lot even in PRS, and I'm not saying there's not better shooters out there than me, and there definitely is, trust me, especially at long distance. I can't train it, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not that good anyway. But the thing is, yes, they're making 1,000-yard shots, but the target is the size of a car. And this is my explanation. I'm not throwing shade. I probably couldn't shoot that ever, but at 1,000 yards, you want to hit a human or a two-legged deer. We'll cut that out. Two-legged deer, right? You don't want to hit a car unless you're rocking like a 50 caliber rifle and you're really solely doing armored defense, or you're rocking like an anti-tank rifle. It doesn't matter if you can hit a car at 1,000 yards. You want to hit a two-legged deer and put it down consistently at 1,000 yards. And that is borderline impossible. So like I said, and I'm using yards and meters interchangeably. I'm sorry if that's annoying. My apologies. But what we're saying here is there has to be a sweet spot, and that sweet spot could be different for every individual. I would say anything above 600 meters, you're kind of good. Anything, 600 to 1,000 meters, you should be all right. But like I said, every meter after that, or after 600 meters, you're gaining advantage, but you're also losing an advantage. It's all dependent on your skill as a shooter. Now, what are some advantages that you gain? What am I talking about there? Well, you can use a slower rate of fire and still be effective at those distances. You can get the drop on somebody, especially if you have a suppressor, because it's going to take them longer to figure out where you are, especially if you're using a good hide sight and you have good camouflage on. Let's say a ghillie suit, overhead cover. You're way out in the pines, so to speak. You got a foxhole dug, or a good solid sniper hide sight. You got a flash hider on there, or even a suppressor. And I keep saying, suppressors, they're about to become legal in the U.S. just for purchase. Seems like I would not start getting anything ready because they're still going to be expensive in the U.S. It's ridiculous how expensive they are, but we'll hit on that as it gets here. But right now, it seems like they're about to get off the NFA, which is good, and I hope so, but I wouldn't get my hopes up. But anyways, if you want to pay that tax stamp and all that and do the fingerprints and all that crap, go ahead, do it. I'm not saying it's worth it or not. I'm not talking politics. I don't talk gun rights or whatever. I don't do that on this channel. But it would be nice to be able to just walk in a store and buy a suppressor for like $150 because it's just a tube of metal, with threads. But it's whatever. But especially if you're using anti-flash or anti-sound, sound mitigation devices, you should be almost undetectable unless the opposition's running like thermal or something like that. And if you have the money for it, go ahead and get you a thermal scope with a ton of zoom if you wanted to. That's all dependent on you. However, thermal is king right now. It beats analog, it beats digital. Thermal is king. So if that floats your boat and you have $10,000 to $20,000 just to throw around, then yeah, get thermal. Simple as that. But for most of us, a good scope with 6 to 18 or even 6 to 24, or hell, if you could get to 50 times magnification and still make hits, I would probably get as high magnification as possible, and I'd try to keep that distance as far away as possible, but know what you can hit and know what you can't hit. When you combine all that, you combine the camouflage, you combine the tactics and the skills and good ambush positions and stuff like that, and you learn about reconnaissance, and you do, there's a lot of studying involved, but once you get that and that basic outline of your fighting skills taught to yourself and your team in this case, then I think you'll be all right. I really think bolt actions could succeed in that, and like I said, it's mainly the rate of fire and the fact that it's borderline impossible, even with a short action, to keep your cheek weld and then rack the bolt. It just goes back too far. Now, I'm sure there's some odd bolt action that somebody's going to type in the comments and say, well, actually, this one isn't like that. It has this proprietary system, blah, blah, blah. Look, man, I got to generalize here, okay? If you want to run a bolt action, you're going to have to create distance above 600 meters. That's the whole point of this video. 20 minutes of yapping right there, just to say that. You're going to have to work on shooting. You're going to have to work on good camouflage. You want to, oh gosh, what is it called? You want to kill flash on your weapon, a suppressor if you're legally allowed to have it. You want anything to do to mitigate your signature. I'm talking Cobra hood at the very least, or face paint and a boonie head at the very least with some grass in it, stuff like that. That's just what you want. You want full camo. You don't want no shine. You see me in a lot of my training videos. I wear like a Casio Duro, just because it kind of pays homage to the Pepsi Rolexes. Now, it's shiny, and I'll wear it during training, and I already know people are rolling their eyes. Like, you're saying you have face paint on, but you're wearing that. Yeah, because it's training. In real life, I probably wouldn't even have a watch on, or if I did, I'd have a sock over it, and it'd be camoed out. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that you just, for training, it's all right, but as long as you know and you're practicing and you know that if this was real, you wouldn't be doing that, but for training purposes, it's all right, then I think that's fine. But anyways, get out there and train. Let me know your thoughts. I know this wasn't necessarily a how-to. It's just what you needed. It's what you needed to do in the actual in the use case for it. Now, with my training, where I live in the Appalachian region, and everything is engagement distance, pretty much 400 yards are in, or roughly 350 meters and in at the maxed out volume, I don't really think it's viable to, if you have to use it, you can, I guess, but there's too many risk factors. And let's say you have a good hide site. If you can get the drop on a small element, you might make it out alive, especially if you have multiple people with multiple bolt actions. If you keep multiplying how many you have, then your odds are going to go up substantially. But the thing about it is, if they spot you, you are dead. Even after you fire the first shot, let's say you're taking on 5 dudes and it's just you and one other person. You hit one, your buddy hits one, there's still 3 left, and they have like fully automatic AKs or select fire AKs. You go to rack that bolt, and keep in mind, we're in the forest here. If they see your hand rack that bolt, you're gone. If they see your buddy's hand rack that bolt, he's gone. Just keep that in mind. We're talking trained soldiers here. Trained soldiers here. It's not worth the risk. It would be far better to have a 5.56 SPR build or an AR-10, talking like the M110 sniper system. That I helped develop that, not for the Army or anything, but my own proprietary Appalachian sniper system. That's kind of what that's based on, and it's based around semi-automatic platforms, because in that same scenario, you and your buddy could be your spotter and you could be the sniper. You could wipe out that whole squad essentially, maybe one left, but essentially within 4 to 5 seconds. If they're walking in a field or the wood line or something like that, and you spot them all, you can essentially wipe them out, especially if you have suppressors and you're using the same precautions to hide your signature as a bolt action, really quickly. I'm talking within 6 to 10 seconds, easy, wipe them out that quick. It's dirty and it's nasty, but that's just how warfare is. Now, I know this is a lot of talk, and this is best case scenario that's provided you don't miss under stress, but I'm saying if you don't miss and you're able just to get back on target and pull the trigger again, between 2 people versus 5 people and semi-auto capabilities within 300 meters, dude, it's way better than bolt action. It's at least 10 times better than a bolt action. And I'm saying this because if you can buy a semi-automatic, just buy a semi-auto. It's that simple. If you can legally own one, then just buy a semi-auto. It is so much better in those engagement distances. But if you can't, stick to distance. Work on your precision shooting. Work on your camouflage techniques. Go out, play airsoft or something, and work on your camo that way, because you'll be going up against real people. You'll learn a lot, stuff like that. But au revoir, a bientôt. God bless you. Have a great day. See you next time on the mountain. Peace.